I'm Lindsay Elliott from Lindsay Elliott Coaching, and welcome back to another Ask Me Anything question. So I'm going to read Emma's question, which she sent me in, which is a brilliant question, and then I'm going to speak to it. So she says, can you tell me, I'm finding a lot of things that I do are negative, and I know I should be doing the opposite, if that makes sense. For example, I know the dog needs a walk for him and my exercise, but I tend not to do it. And hygiene is the same. A nice bath and hair wash, again, I don't bother. Getting up at a decent time in the morning doesn't happen. It feels easier to stay in bed. It seems the easier option to do the negatives. Does this make sense? Yes, it does, Emma. I don't know if it's like I'm punishing myself, but do you get the idea of what I'm saying? If I knew why I was doing this, it may help me to change. So this is a great question, and one that I think almost every human being seems to experience at some point in their lives, or not even at a point in their lives, probably many times over the course of their lives. And really it's to do, for me, with understanding what is happening in the mind in this kind of little cycle and this little process that's going on. So there's a few points that I want to make. And the first point is really just to notice how, when we can pull back a bit, we can notice that the mind is labelling everything positive and negative. So taking the dog for a walk is positive, not taking the dog for a walk is negative. Having a bath is positive, not having a bath is negative. So, and I do understand that in the society that we live in, this is totally what goes on everywhere. And it's absolutely what minds love to do. Okay, so one of the jobs of the mind, one of the many jobs of the mind, other than keeping the body alive and keeping us breathing, doesn't care about our happiness. It just is here for survival. And one of the big jobs that it does is that it loves to categorize things. So, and it likes to make up stories about things because there's so much information coming to us all the time. Sensory information, intellectual information, physical information, verbal information. There's just so much, and particularly in our modern world, there's just so much that, sorry, just turning my phones off. That the brain has to kind of categorize things and lump things together for efficiency, because the brain is a machine and it wants to be efficient. So just to know that this is absolutely a function of the brain to label things positive and negative. And I also understand that in our society, in the world that we live in, there's a lot of this labeling of positive and negative going on. Now, it doesn't mean that things like exercise and looking after ourselves aren't good for us. Okay, those can be good for us. But in any given moment when we're faced with a choice, we can't really know whether something is positive or negative. There may be some mornings when having a bit of extra time in bed is absolutely the right thing to do, and other mornings when getting out of bed and doing something else is absolutely the right thing to do. But what I sense is happening here, Emma, is that you are innocently believing all of this categorizing that your mind is doing, the labeling that it's doing, where it's saying this is the negative and this is the positive. So first off, we just want to see if we can pull back from that, notice that this is what is going on, and then see if something in the space around that kind of occurs to you differently about this. So it's just starting to see that in any given moment, our brains, our minds are absolutely making a story, okay? And your brain is making a story about the things that you've got to do. Some are negative, some are difficult, some are hard, some are easy, some are pleasurable, some are not pleasurable. And it's just telling this story. And I also suspect it's telling a story about you, which I'm going to come to, about what it means about you as well, that this is going on. But I'll talk about that in a bit. So that's the first thing to see. And once the second, I think, really helpful thing to see here is that because minds, as I said, have to kind of streamline things, they absolutely get habitual about things. And what I suspect is happening here is, like your mind, much like my mind, has just got into a habitual pattern with this. So when it shows when it kind of within your kind of more being self, the thing of like, okay, I need to walk the dog now comes up. For some reason, your brain is just then the automatic response that it has is, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. You don't want to do that. It's easier just to stay sitting on the sofa. Or when the time comes to get out of bed, you've now just got this automatic habitual loop of, oh, just stay in bed a bit longer. And so once this kind of loop starts, the more that we pay attention to it and the more that we believe it, then the more that it looks solid and real and true that, yes, I do want to stay in bed. Yes, I don't want to have a bath. Yes, I don't want to take the dog for a walk. When actually, I think the fact that you've asked this question tells me that you're already aware that there is somewhere in you, there's a you in there that does want to be doing these things, looking after yourself, getting out in the fresh air with your dog, making some changes in your life. I don't think you would be asking this question if that wasn't the case. So what we've got here going on, as I see it, is like a mind that's now habitually chat about what you do, labelling it positive and negative, trying to talk you out of things, just because for some reason that feels safer to your brain. I mean, that's a big story that we don't need to go into, and it's not really important. For some reason it's decided that not doing these things looks like it's keeping you safe. And I don't mean like physically safe, but just like keeping the status quo, I guess is a better way of saying it. Keeping things in familiar. Sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. It's more familiar just to not do these things and to be stuck in this negative habitual loop. Okay. So just seeing that is happening and noticing it can sometimes be enough just to kind of almost like break the mesmerizing quality of it, where you are innocently just turning yourself towards it, looking at it and believing it. So the key with any thought created habitual cycle that we get into is not that it's happening, it's in our ability to see through it. Okay, to not believe it, to know that our brain is innocently giving us this story, giving us this negative spin on things, and we are innocently believing it. Okay. So as you notice this coming up, my suggestion would be is just to start noticing, oh, there it goes again. There's the broken record of it's easier to stay in bed. Just notice how much it says the same thing over and over and over again, because you've already written down all of the thoughts that it tells you. Oh, don't bother. Oh, stay in bed. Oh, this is easier. So just start to notice that, okay, that this is, oh, there's that again, and get curious about it. The third thing that I want to point out, and this was the thing that really blew my mind when I saw it myself, because, I've had this going on. I think almost every human being has this going on, is when I realised that I don't have to feel like doing something in order to do it. Because when we've got this negative kind of like thought cycle going on of, oh, I haven't got enough energy, it feels easier just to stay in bed, or I can't be bothered to take the dog out, all of that. As that's whirring around in our head, we absolutely get to feel that. And that can feel like I don't want to do it. But when I realised that, okay, this is a thought-created experience that isn't true, isn't objectively true, okay, the world is neutral, my brain is innocently labelling this as boring or too hard work or I don't want to do it, something along those lines, and I'm getting to feel that, and I'm feeling it, and then that starts to turn into feeling like I genuinely don't want to do it. But what we can notice, once we start to notice this cycle, we can also then notice that there's tons of times over the day where the feeling and the action don't have to match. Okay, so tons of times over the day, I don't feel like cooking dinner, but because we need to eat, I just get on and do it. Tons of times I have the thought, I don't want to clean out the guinea pigs, but because I know, down here, not just up here in my chatty mind, because I know that I need to care for them and I want to care for them and it's my job to care for them, I just get on and do it regardless of all of the chatter that's going on in my mind. And if you can reflect, Emma, I think you will see that there's also loads of times in your life where you do things and you don't necessarily feel like doing it. We don't have to wait for all of that motivation. We don't have to wait to feel excited about going out to take the dog for a walk. Those don't have to match. From a more settled place, I imagine that you already know that you want to be able to take the dog for a walk so that you can get some exercise. Like you down here, not you in your chatty mind, not you up in your psychology, knows that you want to, of course, look after yourself by having a lovely bath. You know that you want to take the dog out for the walk. You want to get up in the morning, but you're just innocently being talked out of it by your mind and thinking that because you don't feel like it, because you're feeling you're thinking, it's even more that you should just continue listening to your mind. So it can be really helpful to reflect, okay, where in my life do I already do things when I don't feel like doing them? Because then you'll see that the process is already happening and can absolutely happen in all of these instances that you've labelled in your listed in your question. So I hope that makes sense, because really I think that is the key to it. It's the key to getting rid of any procrastination or any self-doubt or any delay in doing things, is to know I don't have to feel like doing this. If from a settled place I know I want to do this, I know I want to achieve this in my life, I don't have to have the momentary feeling that matches it in order to do it. So I hope that makes sense. And the last little bit that I want to say is what I don't think this experience is saying about you. Because you said, I don't know if it's like I'm punishing myself. So I feel like caught up in that for you, I wonder, is some misunderstanding that because this is happening, because you know there's positive changes that you want to make and you're not making them, that this means that in some way, and that this negative stuff this negative thought cycle is happening to you, that it means that in some way you are deficient, not good enough, that you are punishing yourself for something unknown in your subconscious that you don't know about, that there's some story there that this means a lot about you. And I would really like to just question that and poke a hole in it. So this is just what happens with a brain, with a mind. It happens to all human minds. It's not unique to you. And what if it absolutely doesn't mean anything about you as a person? It's just an experience that's passing through you. It's just now got a habitual thought loop. It doesn't mean there's any deep and dark stuff kind of lurking underneath that means that you're not doing this. It's just a pattern that your brain has got into. And the more that you can see that quite neutrally, as in not labelling it emotionally as, kind of like bad or shouldn't be happening, the more that you can just see, okay, this is what's happening, this is the experience, the easier it becomes just to kind of see through it. Because nothing that happens in our psychology, and this is all in your psychology, there's constant batting back with your mind, I know I should be doing it, I know I don't want to do it, and I don't feel like it, but I want to be making these, all of that's all up in your psychology. And when it's up in your psychology, that means it's absolutely nothing to do with who you are as a person. So there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing you need to fix or change, nothing broken that this is happening to you. It's just a simple misunderstanding of your brain, your thinking, and your understanding and your relationship to that. Okay, so I hope that has been helpful, Emma. Do let me know in the comments below or send me an email, and to anyone else who's been listening, I really hope this has been helpful. And if you would like me to answer your question in an Ask Me Anything, then please, the email is now on the screen. I think it's going to be over there. You can email me at lindsay@lindsayelliott.co.uk. I'll also leave it in the comments below, and I would love to answer your question. So thanks ever so much, and thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.